Tu te réveilles au petit matin, tu vois ta vie comme un joyau, un paradis du temps précieux qui te ressemble comme une terre pure.
Shonga chuji anji podrana, toksen sanji kanji ngonyet. Rasame shurka muzume stunja bar, sawe lama namla sorate. Kirba sanji chua shikdani, nyamba drupa shomla tanta. Sanjine manere tambe chanso lodo chanso shabla sorate. Lame chosme chamzo doje dang shirke kere pema shomlachi. Shenri tsinga gyalwe nyuku ye tanda trupa tanjine trupara ho. Ranjin lame trambe kajela kosme charo shitru latsohan. Rale jana nipre tujo tuyo irmi chivare shinji lo. Homage to Sakyamuni Buddha. Homage to His Holiness Lama Achuk Rinpoche. Homage to His Holiness Gyalwe Nyuku Rinpoche. Everybody raised bodhicitta to benefit countless suffering sentient beings. And we're carrying on these teachings with respect to preciousness of human life. Now, how many of you woke up this morning or every morning this week thinking, I'm so fortunate to be alive. I am alive. I have a precious human life, and I'm not going to waste it. We're really fortunate to have this precious human life. And as was mentioned in the previous lesson, we spoke about the comparisons. Buddha gave us these comparisons to show us how fortunate we are to have this human life. He compared it to a turtle that surfaces from the bottom of the ocean once every 100 years. Here's an example with the stars and the comparison with the dust as well. Having this human life is really a great advantage, and it's come about through incredibly great causes and conditions from our virtuous actions from previous lives. So it's very important that we use this life very, very well. What do we do most of the time? We're projecting externally, looking externally for the causes of our happiness and unhappiness. But how often do we look into our own mind, close our eyes, or just sit there and look into our own mind and see how many of the causes of our unhappiness or happiness are coming from the external world, and how much is really coming from our internal world, from our own perception. With this human life, we have this opportunity to attain enlightenment. It's just like the example where somebody has got gold underneath their house. I think we've used this example. Even although we may have the gold, first we also need people to tell us that there's gold underneath a house. We need to know that it is gold. And then after that, we also need to be able to mine it. There's no point in having the gold, but we can't extract it. What we need specific tools. And then what we do is we take those tools and then we extract the gold, and then we're able to use it, we're able to sell it or realize its value. Similarly as well, we have this inherent nature, this true nature of mind, our Buddha nature, and it is there. However, it's also very important that we use the methods in order to be able to realize this nature. It's not just going to manifest on its own. It is always there, but it is hidden, or it is obstructed by all of these afflictive emotions of ours, and so we don't recognize it. So we use these tools, these pith instructions of the great masters, all those enlightened beings of the past, for instance Buddha, for instance His Holiness Lama Achuk Rinpoche, like Gyalwin Yungu Rinpoche now, to help us to realize, to guide us through the practices so that we realize our inherent nature. So if to do this, it's very important that we have a guru. And then what Buddha taught as well is that we also have the 8 freedoms and the 10 advantages. These are also examples to help us to realize what we've got. We are so often looking at what we don't have and being unhappy or anxious or worried or discontent because of these things that we don't have. However, we don't look at what we've got. So these are the examples that Buddha gave us to help us to realize that we have these incredible freedoms and these 10 advantages. And so we must really let this enter into our mind stream so that we have a mind of cherishing and gratitude for having this human life, and that we use it meaningfully. And these 8 freedoms are that we are able to practice the Dharma because we have not been born in the hell realm as a preta, in the animal realm, or as long life gods. These are the non-human realms. And then the 4 freedoms as being humans is that we have not been born as barbarians, we have not been born as a fool, we have not been born as a heretic, and we have not been born at a time when no Buddha has descended. There are also the 10 advantages. There are 5 circumstantial advantages and 5 individual advantages, and these we'll talk about later. And we might think as well, but there are so many humans anyway. However, as we saw through the comparisons, that compared to the animals in the other realms, there really are very few humans. Then if we look at the humans as well, how many of those humans are really practicing, and how many of them are disinterested in the Dharma? In comparison, there really are not many great practitioners compared to those people who are not practitioners. And what happens as well with many people as well is as soon as you mention these hells or the hungry ghost realms, then they're not interested. Don't talk to me about this. I'm not interested in this. You're trying to manipulate me. You're trying to coerce me. You're trying to force me to believe into something that I can't even see. How can I relate to this? However, it's also still important to know that these realms very possibly exist, and they come about because of the causes and conditions of the karma that we have planted in our previous lives, or in this life, that'll drive us to that realm in our future lives. And it's also good to know about these realms, because one, if we don't consider these realms, then often we may not have respect for cause and effect. Another thing is that a little bit of fear sometimes can be a good motivator as well. Why do we say a good motivator? Is because if we have anxiety or fear about the fact that if we do these negative actions we may experience suffering later, we will take more care as to whether we enter into these actions or not. Look at Milarepa, for instance. What did Milarepa do? Milarepa killed 25 or 35 people, and as a result he realized, because of cause and effect, my next life might have a lot of suffering. Let me repent, let me transform myself and practice the Dharma. And through this fear, he really became a really great practitioner, a great realizer, and his story is told by everybody. In this precious human life as well, it's also important for us to realize that we shouldn't take it for granted. We could lose it at any time. This life is very frail. At any moment, any disaster could happen, and then this life has come to an end. So while we have this precious human life, use it meaningfully, cherish it, and practice the Dharma. The first of the 8 freedoms is being able to practice the Dharma because we are not born in the hell realms. Now, the hell realms is the realm of the 6 realms that has the most suffering, and it comes about because of the heaviest karma. Generally, it comes about because of anger. And then there's the hot hells, there's the cold hells, there's the neighboring hells, and the occasional hells, or the peripheral hells. And in these hot hells, you continually have this vision that you are experiencing great heat and great suffering. The ground around you is fire, it's really boiling, molten hot iron. And the cold hells, the surroundings are very, very cold, freezing in fact. They're like ice, and there's a lot of cracks maybe in our skin, and we get blisters, and we really, really feel uncomfortable. And in these realms, because of the cold or the heat, because it is so intense, we really don't think about practicing. All we're thinking about is our suffering, and we are consumed by our negative thoughts. In the 18 hells, there are 8 hot hells, there are 8 cold hells, and there are also the neighboring hells. So the 8 hot hells are the reviving hell, the black line hell, the rounding up hell, the crushing hell, the howling hell, the great howling hell, the heating hell, and the heating intense hell, and the hell of ultimate torture. So those are the 8 hells, or the hot hells. I'll talk about the reviving hell. However, it's good to read about all of the different hot hells and to understand them and to remember them and to really put it into practice, thinking, I really don't want to indulge in this negative karma that will end up or cause me to end up in these realms. So now the reviving hell is really there for a very, very long time. They say one day over there is equal to 500 years of ours. And then we're there for 500 of those years. So it's an incredibly long time. And not one day or one lifetime of our suffering compares to even a day of the suffering over there, or even a minute of the suffering over there. If we burn our hand on something hot, we think of the suffering and the pain we may experience. Now imagine that heat, the intensity of the heat, is 100 times hotter than any fire that we might have experienced or know. So it's incredibly hot and intense pain, or intense heat, and of course then the pain is very intense. And over there, how do we perceive everybody? We perceive everybody as mortal enemies. And so we are always fighting with everybody. We always have negative attitudes towards others. The beings over there, they're brandishing weapons, and then they go to battle with each other, and they are killing each other every day. And they kill each other with all sorts of different weapons in this intense heat where whatever they touch is burning. The ground is molten iron. It is incredibly hot. And then when everybody has died, then there is a command that comes again and says, revive, and then you come back to life again, and then it starts again. All of that unhappiness because of our anger, our hatred, our dislike of others, and also the fighting, the intense physical pain that we experience. And there are really so many beings over there. As we mentioned in the comparisons over here, there are so many beings in here. It's like that of the number of snowflakes in a blizzard, or you could think of the number of grains of sand in a snowstorm. So there's really many, many beings in these hells. So you can just imagine in these realms the suffering, and because of that suffering, because of the heat and because of our anger, there's no time to practice. We don't even think about practice. For many people, it's very difficult to perceive of these hells. It's difficult to imagine. Why is it difficult to imagine as well? Because we've never seen this. We've never experienced that heat. We've never experienced the suffering. And because we don't see it. And so as a result, it's very difficult for us to really understand this. How do these sufferings come about? They come about because of the perceptions of our own mind. It's as Buddha said. He said that with respect to water, the hell realms may experience the water as molten iron. The predators and hungry ghosts may experience this water as blood and pus. And some animals may experience it as their home. Humans, we experience it as water, and the gods experience this water as nectar. So the water is the same. However, the perception of those beings in those different realms is very, very different. Just like ourselves as well. We perceive things differently. What we see may be differently, may be the same person. However, we may perceive them differently. There might be 5 or 6 people in the room, and each of them might perceive this person differently. One person may perceive them as a father, one as a friend, one as an enemy, one as a competitor, one as somebody they don't know. So they perceive them differently. And then also, this perception of ours is going to change according to when we're angry, or we're happy, or full of kindness. You think about it. When we're angry, what happens? Our face changes, our voice changes, our body changes. Our whole posture changes. Our tone of voice really is different. And so we are different. However, if we're full of kindness, then we're very open, we're relaxed, maybe we're smiling. People feel comfortable around us. They maybe feel that they can trust us. So already we have giving of a different perception. And so when people see us, they also see us differently. And so the perception of other people changes as well. If you walk into a room and you see somebody that is very angry, that is mad, you see it very quickly and you think, oh, maybe I should leave this person alone. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I should just sit down quietly. However, if you walk in and you see that somebody is open, relaxed, happy, joyful, then you feel more relaxed and you're more ready to engage in conversation with them maybe, or you just feel relaxed being around them. So one is our perception, the way we look is different as a result of our perception, and also the way other people perceive us is different as a result of our perception. So these different environments as well, they also manifest due to the result of our perception. And this comes about because of all the negative karma that we have planted into our mind stream, into our Laya consciousness. When those karmic winds blow, then we perceive the world in this way. Just like we perceive the environment differently. We may perceive the environment very differently. We may go to a place that we want to think that is going to be a really wonderful place, and we go there. And when we get there, for some people it might be the ideal place, this wonderful place. However, for somebody else, what happens? They get there and they think, oh, this is so horrible, this is so hot, this is unbearable, I'm just not used to this heat, I feel uncomfortable, and look at all of these insects around. And another person as well might have a different perception. And they are used to living in a very hot place, and then they perceive this place as very cold. Oh, this place is so cold, it's freezing. I feel very uncomfortable over here. It's the same place. To some people, they're perceiving it as wonderful. Other people, they're perceiving it as a terrible place. They're very uncomfortable, very unhappy there. And likewise as well, you see these great masters. When you're around them, you feel very happy. You feel relaxed. And this is also a result of their state of mind. Because of their state of mind, we feel at peace, we feel tranquil, we feel more relaxed. And what is the source of all of this? The source of all of this is our own mind. All these karmic seeds that have been planted in our own mind stream. From what? From our past actions of body, speech, and mind. And so that's why it's very important that we develop this mindfulness and awareness. Have the awareness first. What is going on in my mind? What is arising in my mind? Are these thoughts positive? Are they negative? If they are negative, do your best to transform them as quickly as possible. And if they're positive, then support them. And support them for as long as you can. From the examples that we used earlier, we see that the source of this is our mind. Most of our discomfort and unhappiness is resulting due to our perception. It's as Nagarjuna said, all happiness and suffering comes from the mind. So in these 3 lower realms, if you end up there, because of this intense suffering, because of the unhappy thoughts, the anger, or the negative thoughts, it's very difficult to accumulate virtue. All we're thinking about is our unhappiness and our physical suffering. And this has come about, as we said, because we've accumulated a lot of negative karma. Just think about how we spend our day. In one day, how many variety of different thoughts and emotions and states do we experience? We may have times that we're feeling indifferent, there are times that we're feeling anxious or worried, that we're feeling happy, that we're feeling joyful, that we're feeling hurt, that we're feeling angry. And so you see how quickly and how often our mind fluctuates. How many fluctuations do we have in a day? Where are all of these fluctuations coming from? They come from our mind. And these fluctuations might be different to other people, as we mentioned earlier. It just depends on the event that we are experiencing and our own state of mind. We may experience the same event, however, one person experiences it as unhappiness, another person is indifferent, and another person is very happy to have this experience. What a joy, how fortunate I am. Where is this all coming from? It's coming from our mind. It all comes from the karma within our mind stream as well. Our past actions, our past habits then lean us, or we are, because of this karma, we're inclined to perceive things in a different way. It is as Shantideva has said, who has created the burning ground? From where do the multitude of flames come from? It is said by Shakyamuni Buddha, all this comes from the evil mind. All of this is experienced due to our own perception. What is the key? Our own mind. So it's very important that we practice, transform our own mind. And this is where meditation is so important, maintaining the right mindfulness and awareness. Awareness, as we mentioned earlier, and the right mindfulness is to know what to accept and what to reject. So it's also important to understand cause and effect. And what is the greatest cause of this? The greatest cause is our ignorance. Because of our ignorance, we have the self-cherishing, we have the self-grasping. We think that we are independent from everything else, that we are permanent. However, this is not the case. If we really investigate, we see that this is truly not the case, that our life is interdependent with others. And we start to see that the greatest cause of our suffering comes about because of the self-grasping and the self-cherishing. And as a result of the self-cherishing, the 5 poisons arise. That is our ignorance that starts it, our attachment, our anger, our pride or arrogance, and our jealousy. And we see this as well within our own dreams. Sometimes we have great dreams, sometimes we have nightmares. However, are they real? No, they're the own perception of our own mind. And where do these perceptions come from? Where do these dreams come from? Very much influenced by what we've done in the day, or what we've done previously, in this life and previous lives. Those karmic seeds then manifest in our dreams. And when the dreams are happening, they feel so real. They are so joyful. Or if they're a nightmare, they are so terrifying. We can even wake up in a cold sweat just as a result of a dream. However, when we wake up, what has happened? Where's the dream? It's gone. It's over. We're not worried anymore. But while it's happening, it seems so real. But in reality, it's just a dream. If we find it very difficult to conceive of or to imagine or visualize this great suffering in these hells, then what we can do is we can use some real life examples that we may have seen in the human world. Maybe we haven't seen it, but we've seen it in the news. Examples we may have is sometimes you may have heard where an aeroplane has crashed, and when it crashed, the plane exploded and everybody or nearly everybody was burnt to death, burnt alive. Imagine that pain, that intense suffering that they experienced. When I was in Chengdu many years ago, there was the case where somebody took a gas bottle into one of the buses and it exploded on the bus, and I think there were 20 or 27 people in the bus and nobody could get out the bus, and every single one of them burned to death. So you can really imagine that intense suffering that they have had. So we can use examples like this as well to help us with this meditation. And we can imagine as well, if we were that hot, would we think of practicing? No, we wouldn't think of practicing. All we'd be thinking about is our intense suffering. Think about it. If it's just a really, really hot day, very humid, do we feel like doing anything? Do we feel like practicing? No. So use examples like this to help assist you with your visualization of your practice. And then what we would do is we meditate there is a procedure for the meditations. And then what we do is we meditate on this, visualize and imagine their suffering in that heat, all of their angry thoughts, all of their intense physical suffering. And then just think how lucky I am to have this human life. Let me use it well. Let me use this life to practice, to cherish this life, to transform myself, to transform my mind, and to benefit others. And let me not waste a single moment, not a month, not a week, not a day, not even a second. May I apply myself in practice. One, that I may attain enlightenment. And the second is that I may, through attaining enlightenment, be able to attain the realization that I could help beings like this be free from their suffering in samsara. If you think of their intense suffering, who would be the first that should be saved from their suffering? Us or them? Their intense suffering is far worse than ours. Of course, it would be nice to have ours as well, that is, to be relieved of our own suffering. This we need to do to be able to benefit others. Otherwise, how are we going to be able to benefit others if we can't even transform ourselves? And also, in light of the comparisons, also we can think as well that this life is so, so precious. It's more precious than having all the jewels of all the worlds, all the material things in all the worlds, because through this, with this human life, we have this opportunity to practice and to transform ourselves and attain enlightenment, to free ourselves from samsara, the suffering of samsara. Apply this, let it really enter into your mind stream so that we use this life meaningfully, that we cherish it, that we have gratitude, and that we practice, that we will be determined to practice bodhicitta, to practice renunciation, use this life meaningfully. It really is so precious to have this human life. And then also to remember to practice like this, doing this visualization, not only for the reviving hells, but also for the black lion hell, the rounding up and crushing hell, the howling hell, the great howling hell, the heating hell, and the intense heating hell, and the hell of ultimate torture. Practice like this again and again, and then let's dedicate these merits of listening to the Dharma and of our practice. First, dedicated to all our enlightened masters, the greatest of gratitude for sharing their great wisdom and their great compassion. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, having defeated the enemies of wrongdoings in the turbulent ways of birth, old age, sickness and death. May all be liberated from the ocean of the suffering of samsara. Sonam deye tamcha tsepan, tomye nyepe tranam khachich, keka nache bala trupai, tsibi tsoli droa shu.
Allez, encore un essai. Tu te réveilles au petit matin, tu vois ta vie comme un joyau, un paradis du temps précieux qui te ressemble comme une terre pure. Tu te